Hello and welcome to this, not just a Tea and Tights Brit Rest special, or not just a European wrestling special, but a truly international wrestling special. Our guest speaks 5 different languages, and despite being barely a year into her in-ring career, she has traveled from Switzerland to Germany to Mexico to the USA, learning her trade under the likes of Robert Dreissker, Thunder Rosa, Dr. Tom Prichard, and more. She has competed for OVW, Mission Pro Wrestling, and WXW. She is the international Swiss sensation, Michelle Green. How are you, Michelle?
I'm wonderful today. Thank you for the lovely introduction. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much. We're Tea and Tights, the Great British Wrestling podcast for Great British Wrestling, as featured on bodyslam.net and and the Jonas Podcasting Network. So, as you are a very intelligent girl, you've got a master's degree, I've learned that, and you speak 5 different languages. You had a very, very good job in Switzerland, but you gave it all up to pursue pro wrestling. Why?
Yeah, sounds pretty wild, right? And all that flattery is going to get you everywhere. Well, I do have my tea ready. It's green tea now. It's supposed to be very good for your recovery. In the morning, it's more black tea. And so I discovered wrestling in like 2015, and then I became a fan and started going to events, to WXW too. I'm native from Switzerland. I was born there, but I grew up all over the world. So that's why I speak a lot of languages. Also because I'm passionate about talking to people and getting to know people. And as for wrestling, I started training and it just clicked. I fell in love with it. And the passion grew and grew. And over some time, I came to WXW to train here, to kind of gather like, where do you stand? Like, what's the measuring stick? And it grew more and more. And then the pandemic happened. And I just felt like, well, if everything's short-lived, then I might as well do what I have the most passion for and do that. So I quit my job as a marketing manager, like you alluded to, and decided to go wrestle. Because if you want 100% of the results, you should put 100% in, if you can, obviously. And I'm fortunate enough that this was a possibility. So I said, okay, let's go. And my first station was Mexico, because at the time there was no way to get to the US. And really, there was also no training in Europe. But I did know some Mexican wrestlers. And I had traveled there once before and just was mind blown by all the love for lucha libre there, which is like one of the top 3 sports in Mexico. Whereas obviously, I think most of your listeners or European fans have to explain a lot as to what wrestling is. And so I trained there for 3 months in the lucha libre style. So started from anew. And after that time, I was given an introduction to Thunder Rosa through a common friend. And we talked for like 10 minutes. She said, hey, we have a group of women. We're all training here in Texas. And at the time, I had figured out that all the Mexican luchadores were going up to the US to train and to have shows. So I was like, well, let me figure out this and I'll be there. And so I traveled up there, and that's how I got into the US. And in the last 1.5 years, I've been traveling to the US to get training. And because obviously only practice makes better. And finally, I trained with Thunder Rosa, Jazz, and Rodney Mack. And the last year or so, I've been training with Dr. Tom Prichard in Knoxville, Tennessee. So that's been all the basis of now. In my first year, I'm going to finish, I think, with like at the end of the year will be 60 matches. So yeah, been keeping busy, and it's been a lot of fun.
I mean, you say 15 matches, which I think is truly incredible because you are an incredible young performer. When I was doing my research ahead of this podcast, and I was looking back thinking, oh, she's probably a 3 to 5 year rookie, because I thought the match I saw you live for WXW Femme Fatale against Shazza McKenzie and Maria De La Rosa. It was an international triple threat, great match. You won. So I was expecting you to have had several
Tell them
years.
Again, I won.
You won, but I heard you did face her again this weekend, didn't you?
Yes, I did face Maria again this weekend in Gelsenkirchen, and the matches will be released soon. So definitely always worth to pay attention to WXW.
It is. You've got Leighton Buzzard versus Peter Tahanier. Those are two fantastic young talents. One from Scotland over here in the
Absolutely.
UK. Peter Tahanier is the Hungarian sensation. We've had him on the show. He is an absolute superstar in the making. You also had Endakara versus Alising, which is a match that I really, really want to see because they literally kick the crap out of people when they fight. So I want to see them kick the crap out of each other.
For sure.
I love that type of wrestling. But we mentioned you are from Switzerland. The most well-known Swiss performer would of course be Cesaro, now back as Claudio Castagnoli. And it was because of an article you read about Cesaro in a Swiss magazine that kind of got you all started. Is that right?
Yes. So I read about him winning the US championship at the time, and I remembered like having seen wrestling as a child or like a few years prior. And so then I just started watching it on YouTube and it kind of just took me in. It was also the moment that the women's evolution was happening in WWE. And I just admired these female athletes like Amazonian warrior queens. And it just really motivated me also for me, like doing my home workouts at the time. And yeah, so that's how I got very memorized and suckered into this fantastic world.
And you started training in Zurich, Switzerland at the Wrestling Academy Robas. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right. Yes, and actually NXT UK superstar Oro Menza is also another famous Swiss wrestler. So I also had the pleasure to have a few trainings with him, and that was has also been incredible to see his journey. And now across the pond.
We were big fans of his time as Oliver Carter, teaming with Ashton Smith on NXT UK. So, and of course, were you training with Dennis Castrolin as well?
Not so much, but I have before, yes.
Because
He's
another
currently injured, but I hope he has a speedy recovery.
Yeah, another Swiss superstar who's been making waves in Europe right now and has performed for WXW quite regularly. So you're hoping to follow suit, aren't you? I guess.
Yes, I mean, all across the globe, Michelle Green is ready to pick a fight and deliver.
Now, your first live event you went to was a WWX show, is that correct?
Sorry?
Your first live show that you ever went to was actually a WXW
It
show.
was a Swiss show at first, but then I proceeded to go up to WXW with a group of friends. So it was also wonderful at Femme Fatale was my main roster debut, and to have it in front of my friends, which is also the first time I performed in front of friends because I had been abroad performing previously. So yeah, the last few months I've ticked off a lot of goals that I wanted to reach: WXW, Mission Pro, and to perform in front of loved ones was definitely a new one, which happened when I won the Series Championship in October.
Yeah, let's talk about winning the Sirius champion in October in Switzerland, your home country. Sirius is a promotion based in Germany originally. Is run by Jazzy Gabbett, the former alpha female. WX. What was it like working with Jazzy?
She's lovely. I reached out to her when I knew I was going to be in Europe, and fortunately, we have the pleasure to work together. And it was my first match in Switzerland after all, because I had been abroad and traveling. So it was really meaningful to win the championship in Basel and now be the Sirius women's champion and represent the company.
And what was it like to be able to win that title with your family and friends actually watching you? I mean, it must have been a bit of a rush, I guess.
Yes, it was a big rush to have everyone or to have a lot of people in the audience. Of course, the championship had just been introduced a week prior, and Selena had just beat Mila Smith. She had pinned her in a three-way with the three of us. So we had some pending business, her and I, and I'm glad it turned out my way. And it was very meaningful to perform in front of my hubby my parents and friends and family. So hope to do that again soon.
Because as you say, you did move out to Mexico to the US. Your dedication to learning and wrestling itself is quite something, because whilst you were working training with OVW with Thunder Rosa, you started to work backstage at a few shows for Mission Pro and the NWA. Is that right?
Yeah, I did, like, before I had debuted, I did Mission Pro and NWA backstage, and then ever since I've also done NWA and I've done Impact, because it's just a great way to learn, and it's also incredibly motivating to see it up close and to see that here are the people who are doing what you're working towards achieving, and so that means that it can be done. Obviously, I believe that I can do it, otherwise I wouldn't invest in myself in this way. But if you don't believe in yourself, then why should anybody else? So I'm confident about the journey that I'm on.
That's fantastic. And of course, you've actually now made a debut for Mission Pro Wrestling. You faced Jasmine Allure, unfortunately in a losing effort. But following the match, Thunder Rosa actually came out to both congratulate you and using saying you looked like a star. What was that like to have that moment?
Oh, it was so meaningful. Going to Mission Pro was one of my top 3 goals in wrestling. And whenever I kept updating my portfolio, I would send it out, send it out, send it out. And then eventually the stars aligned, and I, in September, could have my first match for Mission Pro, also against Jasmine Allure, who I used to train with and had looked up to because of all the things she has been able to achieve. She's now on WOW. She's been featured on AEW in different capacities. So it was very meaningful. And of course, I wanted it to be a winning effort. I always do. But in this case, Jasmine out tricked me and she got the upper hand. And to have Thunder Rosa come in and see her tell me how far that I've come and that I look like a star and that she's incredibly proud of me. And then Michelle Green is money was just goosebumps. It was really nice. I was kind of in awe that this was happening because, yeah, I just wanted to win the match. I didn't do that. And then this other part happened. So I was really excited and elated about that day. Yes.
Now, we've mentioned you speak 5 languages. You also sing and rap in 5 languages, as I've gone through some of your promo videos. Well, what's that about? Where did it come from? How did it get started for you to introduce that into the way that you deliver some promos?
So obviously my first language is Swiss German. I speak German, English, Spanish, French, and I'm learning Italian as my hobby is Italian. And originally, my first dream as a teenager was to become a singer, but I decided to pursue business administration and a management career. And I always kept wrestling and singing separate, although I express myself a lot in song or writing lyrics. And I had a seminar with Sebastian Suave from Smash Wrestling in Canada and Psycho Mike. And they talked about creating a USB by combining different aspects. So obviously I have my provenance, I have my languages, I have my physicality. And it led me to think about including singing more so into my promos because it's something very unique and something that's just a lot of fun for me too and very natural to who I am as a person. So then going forward, that's how I started including it. And yeah, it's always good to follow at I'm Michelle Green on all social media platforms, as that's where you can see all my promos and my upcoming shows and so forth.
And of course, speaking these 5 languages has helped you be able to promote yourself quite well as well, because you've managed to do podcasts in Spain, in German, and obviously in English as well. Has that been a benefit for you?
Well, I think the goal overall is to make wrestling and women's wrestling bigger and better. And for that, you got to spread the word and you got to create a platform. So that's why I take a lot of care and pride in creating my brand and in looking after my platform, because those are essential for any business, which is in the end what it is for all parties involved. And so that's how it comes to me. And it's I mean, you yourself are also a content creator. You see all the work that goes into it. But as always, the how do you say, like, the cherry on top is making things look easy.
And you actually do, the way you carry yourself in ring, the way you make an entrance, the way that you provide your promos. Did you put this down to your music past, or is this something that's come from your business side? Because I know myself, as a business graduate, as having a degree in business, you get to do a lot of presentations, don't you? So did this help?
I think it's a combination. So singing at an early age definitely helps with stage fright, but I do believe that if you don't have butterflies, then it means you don't care. So of course I always am excited to perform. And then as for the presentation, of course, the business context help. I went to University of St. Gallen, which has a lot of presentation, a lot of pitching. I worked as a marketing manager, which also involves a lot of this. And additionally, for a year, I was the president of all Swiss fraternities and sororities. So of all the like students club, and I would travel across Switzerland and give each week like 3 to 4 speeches, like short ones, like maybe 5 to 10 minutes. But so I'm definitely very comfortable with public speaking.
You certainly worked hard at university then. I must admit, I was one of the worst students you could have. I never worked
But no
hard,
one cares afterwards. Like in the
no,
thick
they
of
don't.
it, like education is very important, but afterwards, no one cares. It's really the only thing that really stuck with me from macroeconomics is the signaling theory, which says that degrees are to signal your will to work hard and to show like it's a proof like this person has the ambition or the drive for this certain level of education. And then what you do with it is up to you. I mean, most of the people end up switching careers anyways. I worked as a marketing manager. Now I'm a wrestler. And I think the fallacy is in that as kids, we imagine life to be very linear, to be like, okay, do school, maybe then you find a job or get an education for a job or university, and eventually you'll settle down, you have pets, get married, yada, 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 all this kind of thing. And you think it's all very linear, but I mean, life's 3D and so is the journey. So I think that's something we all learn like eventually in our 20s.
Yeah, I must admit, I was an older student. I went back to university at 25, so I kind of knew you didn't have to work hard as some of these a lot of the new younger, just going into university at 18, 20, and they're working so hard. I'm just like, yeah, I'm going to get a C and I'm going to be happy. I was always one of those type of people, so I was terrible. And if he had a presentation in class, I always took that class. I went through all the classes. Okay, that has presentation, I'm going to go do those classes because I always knew I'd get an A at presentation. So
I like the ones I preferred presentations and studying because I'm good at memorizing and learning. So I would prefer those, I think. Other than like essays, I'm not as keen on, but yeah.
I was more of a practical person. I always wanted to use it in practical knowledge, not go and look at the theory behind it, I guess. So, but anyway,
and
back
I
to the
think
rest of
it's
it.
and I think it's also more reasonable. I think from my understanding, more schools are going to the way of like open book exams, because in real life nobody's like, you can always look up the answer and just get back to someone later. It's not pistol to the head, and if you don't answer it now, then it's not whatever. Nah, you'll be fine.
Now, you see, you're younger, so when I was at school, I do remember my teachers telling me, you're not going to have a calculator everywhere you go. And of course, we now have a calculator on our phone everywhere we go. So they were wrong. They were definitely wrong. But you're really passionate about women's wrestling, and I love that.
Mhm.
I've seen you answer questions on intergender wrestling, and mentioning the fact that the women's wrestling, that there's so many competitors out there worldwide that you would have to face, that you don't feel like there's a need to do it. But how have you felt about the women's wrestling over in Europe? Because it's slightly different to, say, women's wrestling in the US.
Well, I've just been back for about a month.
Mm.
And so I'm also learning more about the European scene. But of course, there's a lot of talented women. Recently, I went to Austria and met a lot of the UK talent. And I'm very keen to broaden my horizons to travel to the UK, as I know there's a lot of excellent female talent there. And yes, make a name for myself throughout Europe and the world.
That's it. Pro Wrestling Eve is the all women's promotion. So Pro
Yes.
Wrestling Eve. Dan, if you're listening to this, Michelle, she's fantastic. Go check out her work, and I'm sure you would love to bring her over to the UK. Although I do know for a fact that the reason we're not bringing in that much talent at the moment is just due to the cost of a work permit. And that seems to be a stumbling block for many European wrestlers trying to make it into the UK scene at the
Okay.
moment. But I'm sure, as you say, your work speaks for itself. I think you could do fantastic. Although there's some great schools here as well to come train at.
Mhm.
London School of Wrestling in particular would be a good one. But
And if any of your listeners are considering or keen to find out more about pro wrestling schools, I just strongly suggest to go out and try it once, because that's how we all start. It's just the first training, and then you can see how you feel about it, and what kind of form will be the way that you will partake in the wrestling business, because it takes a village to create a show. And if maybe the wrestling's for you, maybe reffing is for you. There's just so many different positions to be involved into wrestling to make it even bigger and better. So I suggest reaching out to your local wrestling school and just swinging by. I'm sure they'd love to have you.
definitely, or you can make a wrestling podcast like I did. Because it was just,
Also,
yeah, we just did this for fun. We it was originally just an NXT UK review show that just kept
mhm.
growing and growing and growing as we wanted to make a focus on British wrestling more of the independent scene, and then we started looking at European wrestling as well. And
I did a bit on the Nina Samuel show in Austria. And of course,
ooh,
excellence recognizes excellence. So we got on marvelously.
yes, I could definitely see a good partnership between you and Nina, and that, I think we should work with that. She is fantastic, and to be honest, in the UK we are blessed with so many incredible women wrestlers
Yes.
at the moment in the UK. Probably, I think we've got just over 100 active women wrestlers in the UK these days. So I was a bit disappointed with how many got into the PWI 150. I thought we should have had more.
Well, there's
Now,
always next year.
yes. Now, you talked about training and training schools. You've been, as I say, to different wrestling schools. You started in
Mhm.
Zurich. You've trained with Robert Dreissker over at the WXW Academy. You've trained in Mexico learning Lucha Libre. You've trained with Thunder Rosa. You've trained with Dr. Tom Prichard and many more. What has that benefited you in any way, learning different things from different trainers?
I do think it opens up your mindset and understanding that everybody's trained differently and that there's not one right way, and being more flexible and adapting. For me, one of the most meaningful schools is Dr. Tom Prichard's schools, because I went back last year and did a full beginner's course for 3 months, because I felt like in my previous education in wrestling, there hadn't been a moment where I had been really drilled and honed in on the basics, on the foundation. And
Mm,
that really helped me to piece everything together, because as I had been to different schools, I had like all these different specialities, techniques, like all these fancy spices, if you might compare it to that. But if you don't know how to like cook with salt and pepper, then like how are you going to create a more complex dish? And so he really inspired me and taught me and encouraged me. And that has really propelled me to where I am today. And I'm incredibly thankful for his guidance.
And of course, with that, with Dr. Tom Prichard, you made your OVW debut, and you've had several matches now in OVW, TV appearances, wrestling against some absolutely fantastic performers. What have been some of your favorite matches so far?
I really enjoyed getting to wrestle for OVW and learning from Al Snow and Doug Basham and being on a TV product, as you said, in my first year. And that's just super valuable as an experience and to grow as a performer. In the summer, we did house shows and traveled the mid-south of the US. So that was also splendid. And I wrestled Layla Gray, Freya the Slayer. I think those are ones that I enjoyed a lot. Ari Alexander. And yes, it's just a really strong female show that they have. And it's transmitted all over the world over Fight TV every Thursday night US time. So it's also really special that my family and my friends over here in Europe could see me perform on live TV as it was happening.
Now, we normally ask a question of if you were able to do a 6-month spell in certain countries, and we'll have to eliminate America already, and technically you're doing Europe. Where would you like to do 6 months, Japan or England?
I mean, I like the US a lot. I
Okay.
think both are very intriguing choices. So I think I would aim to do just both. I'm not gonna pick.
That's not fair. That's okay, but
I hope to
who are
do
some
both eventually. So
of course you could do TJPW and Stardom. I could see you on either of those shows. And of course, as I say, in the UK there are plenty of promotions that you should come and work for, including Progress, TNT Extreme
and
would be
another great example has been to see the rise of Tekla in Stardom. I mean, was the pandemic and I left for Mexico and she left for Japan. And at the time I like wrote her once or twice and I was like, hey girl, keep going. It's really cool to see how you're doing. And now she's in Stardom and she's been killing it. And that makes me very happy to see all the success she's having.
You have faced her in the ring, haven't you, before?
No, I have not at this point.
Okay. Is
Yes.
that somebody you would like to get a match with in the near future then?
Ooh, I'm sure that'd be exciting.
Who out there in the UK would you like to possibly face?
Oh, there's a lot of them. I recently met Rhea Riley, so she definitely be an opponent I've been keen on. I've known of Kanji for a while. Alex Windsor is, I mean, she's doing fantastic at the moment. Any of the talent that has been featured on Eve is super impressive, as well as Progress, Rev Pro, TNT. So I also remember seeing session Moth Martina like way back as a fan. So we were supposed to wrestle each other earlier this year, but it didn't work out in the end. So yes, I mean, there's such a huge talent pool that I'd love to get in the ring with. How about you? What are your current favorites? Who would you like to see Michelle Green face?
Well, Alex Windsor is somebody who I believe to be the best women's wrestler in the world right now. So I would definitely recommend their match with Alex Windsor. Millie McKenzie's back on the scene. She's phenomenal, young talent. So definitely get you in on a match with her. Alexis Falcon has been doing some amazing work, so she would be another great opponent for you. You could get another rematch with Rain Leverkusen, because I know that's who you face over in Rings of Europe.
Yeah, I had the ref. I'm not sure he had a certificate because that was not it. So yeah, I told him off afterwards. He asked me if I'm this aggressive. I'm like, well, hell yeah, if you mess up my match.
Was it not Tassilo then?
No, it wasn't.
No,
No, no,
no, I
no, no,
see.
no.
There
No.
you go.
It's,
That's why you didn't get a good ref.
I don't know where they found this guy, but it wasn't on the top list of referees, that's for sure.
Right, there we go. We have to bring Michelle Green to face Rain Leverkusen in the UK. So UKPW, Jurassic Pro Wrestling. That's where she's been competing a lot. Pro Wrestling Chaos. They're doing a women's show in 2 weeks, actually, Maiden Voyage. So yes, let's get her in for a match. Now, I know you're a big fan of the Four Horsewomen, in particular, Charlotte Flair. If you were to, I'm going to say, if you were to create your own Four Horsewomen of European stars right now, who would they be?
Ooh. Putting me on the spot, sir. Well, Becky Lynch would definitely be one of my choices. Nikki Cross. We actually share the same finisher. So how could I not pick her? Let's see. I'm sure there are like really obvious ones that I'm missing. I have loved to see the determination of Killer Kelly of moving from Portugal to Germany, from Germany to the US. So that has been fabulous. And of course, Alex Windsor is killing it at the moment. So if you're putting me on the spot, those are just the four I'm coming up with. Of course, I wasn't allowed to name myself. So there's that. And yes, I think those could be four very strong choices. How about for you? You're not escaping this question.
If I was going to make one out of, say, the Central European young up-and-comers to make a Four Horsewomen's group, yourself would be on there, of course, and then you would have Maria de la Rosa, because I think she is a phenomenal young performer. Alice Inc., because she's just an absolute badass. And Stephanie Mays. Because again, I think Stephanie Mays is an absolute badass. If I was going to do it for the UK only, it would be Alex Windsor, Lizzie Evo, Kanji, and Laura Di Matteo.
I'd also love to get in the ring with Laura Di Matteo, also just for the fact of her Italian heritage on top of it too. It's I mean, maybe by then my Italian can improve, but Babel is doing me a lot of service, and I'm working very strongly so that Christmas Day I can wow the whole family of my hubby with my newfound level.
Yeah, because she had quite a similar career, because around very young age, she moved from Italy to the UK to learn and study at the Projo, and Ginny, of course, who was another phenomenal talent.
Also, I mean, I'm very keen to see Saraya come back, of course. So I think she would also be a very strong choice for any horsewomen group that you would make.
And Tegan Knox, whenever she does come back, because I
feel
really...
like she's from New Zealand, no?
No. Tegan Knox is she's a Welsh girl.
Oh,
she's
okay.
From Wales.
My bad. Sorry.
Yes.
Okay, I apologize.
Used to go by Nixon Null, but I can understand why, because she had that massive rivalry with Tony Storm.
Oh, yeah.
And maybe your B. Priestley, of course, who was New Zealander, who came over to the UK and trained. So, again, another phenomenal performer.
Yes, I'm excited to see how she goes on to do in NXT UK.
Now, one of the other questions we love to ask is about a Mount Rushmore, because everyone always focuses on American talent. So here we usually get the UK Mount, what we call Mount Rushton, but I'm going to ask you for a European Mount Rushmore of performers. Who would be on your, who would you put up there?
I mean, isn't it also odd that we're doing Mount Rushmore for European? Because it's like an American thing. Shouldn't it be like, I don't know,
what's the Swiss mountain
number?
What's the Swiss mountain
out there?
Sorry, again?
But I mean, there's Matterhorn, but there's this one. The one, you know, the Toblerone?
Yeah.
The chocolate that's like in a triangular shape. There's like the shape of a mountain on it. That is the Matterhorn.
There we go. So it's the Mount Matterhorn of European wrestlers. There you go.
Becky Lynch, Gunther, Sheamus, I'm obviously like more focusing on the recent talent.
Yeah.
And we'll put Cesaro on there, Claudia Castagnoli.
I was
You
waiting
got
for
me
that. I was
into this
expecting.
mess.
I was waiting for you to say Cesaro. So there we go. Of course,
Yeah.
it
What
is
do you
Cesaro.
reckon?
Yeah, you know, Gunther definitely has to be. He has done so much for wrestling in Europe and Germany and so forth. I'm going to give a big shout out to Robert Dreissker right now because, again, he's, you know, really become the main star over at WXW now. And Tristan Archer also deserves a big shout out because he's a phenomenal performer. And not just because they've both been on my podcast. I do truly believe that these guys are fantastic and deserve far more credit than they've got over the last few years. But yes, Cesaro kind of has to be there as well. He really led the way because he started wrestling in Switzerland. He went over to WXW and then went over to America and paved the way for so many performers to do the same. You can't. He's just an incredible performer.
And of course, Becky Lynch, you'd agree, right? She's the man.
She is the man. She absolutely is. She has done a fantastic job. So has Viper or Piper Niven or Doudrop. Doudrop now, that's what they're calling her these days. Just so many
that
talented.
stuck surprisingly long, the name, right?
Who else could we have? Just so many talented women out there, and you're right, and there's so many people you could face in the near future. Now, you made your main WXW debut during a Triple Threat International freeway, and it was at the Femme Fatale show.
Yeah.
Are you hoping to be in Femme Fatale next year, the full tournament? Are you putting your name down on that?
Of course, I'd love to.
Simple.
Yes.
So
I mean, I'm keen for the best experiences with the top performers. I think this year they had the She Won, right?
She won over in the Pro Wrestling Eve. We could
so both of those tournaments are magnificent.
Excellent. And RCW just had their World Cup as well, I think. So that'll be another one that you could enter next year. But are you planning to go back to the States soon?
I definitely do want to go back at one point. Currently, like wrestling is a very fluid experience. So I know that for the next, definitely till the end of the year, I'm here. And for everything else, you will just have to stay glued to at Michelle Green.
That's awesome. Now, everyone, what again? You said your socials earlier, but what are your socials for people to go find you and follow you and to see your career continue to blossom?
I'd love for everyone to come on the journey with me and follow me on social media. Every little bit helps. And as I said, it takes a village, and it takes all the support of all the wrestling fans to make wrestling as big as it could be. And you can follow me at I'm Michelle Green on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, and on YouTube is where you can find some of my matches.
There you go, people. Go support Michelle Green, support UK wrestling, support European wrestling, support independent wrestling. Just support wrestling. And remember, don't feed the trolls.